Well, good afternoon, everybody. It's fabulous everybody's here. I want to thank Father Josh and the St. Rita's community for hosting us here at St. Rita's. I also want to, on behalf of the Board of Trustees and the staff of the Catholic Foundation, I want to thank all of our speakers, Bishop Kelly, Myra Thompson, Charles Donnell, and Ellen Dorn will be speaking after us today. So thank you for giving your time today. This is a very important meeting, and as Bishop Kelly talked about and as Father Josh talked about earlier. And just to echo Charles Donnell's comments, my dad was an estate planning attorney, in St. Louis, and he retired at the age of 90. This was like 12 years ago. And he told all of his clients, make sure you prepay and pre-plan your funerals. Now, my wife and I haven't done that yet, but I listened to it for a lot of years, and I need to do it. So, as I think Charles said, 80% of the people think it's a good idea, 20% of the people go, get it done. So we're here to talk about Charitable Legacy Planning and about the Catholic Foundation. So let me do a brief introduction about the Catholic Foundation. The Catholic Foundation started 69 years ago. It was a historical event in the Catholic Church. It's the only time that I know of that a bishop ceded power over money. It's a lay-led organization. Bishop Gorman, along with the two business gentlemen, got together and said, we need an organization that's similar to the Baptist Foundation. They looked at the Baptist Foundation and said, they have a foundation, why don't we do this? And so they created a Catholic Foundation to address the growing needs of our Catholic community. And it was the Dallas and Fort Worth Diocese in 1955, which stretched basically from Texarkana over to El Paso. So the vision that Bishop Gorman and these men had is tremendous because of all the things we've seen take place in the church. Our separation from the church is protection with regards to plaintiffs' attorneys, but we solely promote the church. So from our unrestricted funds at the foundation, our board gives grants out to organizations in our 9 counties of the Catholic community, Catholic Diocese of Dallas, to those organizations that are Catholic or serve an identifiable Catholic population. So that's a little history about the foundation. We are a community foundation, which means we are a group of almost 600 donors that use the foundation for their charitable giving. And we help people, as our mission says and our vision says, we promote charitable giving. We create charitable trusts and funds for people to simplify and also to carry out their legacies. So if you could go to the next one, please. So the Planned Giving Partnership is something we've been trying to do with all of our Catholic churches and with the diocese for years. And it's very difficult because it's, again, one of those things that people talk about doing but not getting done. It's not common knowledge. People don't understand planned giving. And so when we go to a priest or pastor, we usually ask the question, so how many funerals did you say this past year? They know the number. They know the number very quickly. And then the next question is, so how many bequests did you receive? And then they start looking down at their feet and, it gets quiet in the room. There might be 1, there might be 2, but they know that they said 50 funerals. And the question is how do you take that expectation and turn it up a notch from a standpoint of people want to support the church where all their kids, where they had their sacraments, where they experienced their wedding, where they experienced the funeral of their spouse or of a grandkid or whatever the case is, where they experience those sacraments, they want to continue to support it after they're gone. So that's where we come into play with regards to the legacy part. So we have 6 dedicated staff members that focus on planned giving. And we are working with the diocese. Kelly Halashin is here today for the Vice President of Development for the diocese. And what help we're giving them is we're lending our expertise. And what does that mean? If somebody comes up to Bishop Kelly after Mass on Sunday and says, I have 150 acres of property in East Texas I'd like to give you, instead of Bishop Kelly going, I don't know what to do with that, you can say, call my friends at the Catholic Foundation and they will help do get the legal side of the paperwork done, because we have funds at the foundation that benefit the diocese. And so the funds would come to the foundation for the express use at the diocese. So that's what we're doing. The planned giving is a long-term project. Kelly is focused on here and now. He's got to focus on keeping the diocese running financially. We're here to work with people that are talking about the lady wants to, that might die 50 years or 40 years from now, right? Well, that's okay. You still need to be thinking about your legacies and planning accordingly. So what are the triggers that make people think about estate planning and giving? And it's these that are listed here. I mean, it could be a death of a parent or death of a kid. It could be somebody graduating from high school or college. It could be the marriage of your first kid, birth of a grandkid. So the things that's interesting is also estate planning or legacy planning. Legacy is usually the last thing a professional advisor talks to you about. So when you're working with somebody on the sale of your business, you're focused on getting it sold. Is it the right price? And is it going to happen? And it may not be until after the sale you go, oh, I could have avoided capital gains if I'd gifted part of it instead of, after giving it before. So there's things that you just need to think about, and from a standpoint of the charitable side of it, that's where we can help you create roadmaps and talk about the options that could help you create your legacy.
So just to continue on with what Matt was saying, many of us have reached that, let's just looking around the room, many of us are reaching that half-time point in our lives, and we're reflecting on, what we've accomplished up till now and what's left to accomplish before it's our time to move on to the next life. So we talk about what successes we've had with our family, professionally, personally, and how we can transform your successes that you have achieved up till now into significance. And a lot of that, for many of us in the room, is what we can do for charity. Many of you are already volunteering and supporting financially charities that are important to you. So how can you go that next step from your current giving of your time to a legacy gift after your lifetime? So that's where we at the Catholic Foundation can help you with that too. One of the most common characteristics of a person who is nearing the first half of their lifetime is the unquenchable desire to move from success to a meaningful legacy or significance. To whom much is given, much is expected. And we're here to help you, to teach you and share with you and educate you on how we can help you make that happen and listen to your intentions and get those intentions recorded. So what is a planned gift? Many people get confused because there's a lot of terminology that mean the same thing, but a legacy gift, a planned gift, a gift that you put in paper now for after your lifetime, that's what we're here talking a little bit about today. A gift can be made during your lifetime or after your lifetime, but recorded, obviously, while you're still with us. A significant gift to charity from your estate assets, and we'll be talking about estate planning. Today, Ellen Dorn will be reaching out to you and talking to you about that at the very end of the seminar. Most people who are thinking about how to create their legacy will use an estate planning attorney to create an estate plan for your assets. It usually involves somebody like Ellen. There's many, obviously, that we know. And a planned gift is usually much larger than a current gift that you're already giving to your favorite charities. Statistics show that it's about 200 to 300 times the amount of your last current gift that you're giving. And we talked about inflation earlier on. So for many of us, giving today may not be as easy, but putting something in your will for charity that will come into effect after your lifetime is something that you don't feel out of your pocket today. So that's definitely to think about. Fulfill your passion for charitable giving. Why plan? Establish and direct your legacy during your lifetime. So this is the time to be thinking about how you can put your intentions in place, documented and recorded, so that after your lifetime, it's all taken care of. Obviously, there's a lot of interests for whether it's your church at St. Rita, if it's the Diocese of Dallas or whatever charity that you support today, you might be thinking about how you can continue to support those charities after your lifetime so that you can continue with keeping them moving forward. Support your favorite charities and stay connected with them now and forever. And that's a lot of what we help donors with at the Catholic Foundation. Also, why plan to achieve tax advantages for you and your family through your estate plan? There's definitely a lot of vehicles that you can talk to your estate planning attorney about today and learn what would be the best gift to give to your children and what would be the best gift to give to a charity, because there's definitely tax advantages for different types of gifts. Create a roadmap for all to follow. That is definitely what Matt was saying earlier. If you can put it on paper for your family and for everybody who's taking care of your estate to have, then you can obviously not worry about it after you're gone. So that's definitely an advantage.
So why plan? How do you want to be remembered? Or do you want to be remembered? Maybe it's the first question you got to answer, right? And then what do you want to be remembered for? I think as Charles said, in a different way, none of us are getting out of this alive, right? So the question is, what do we want to be, what do we want to be known for, and do we want to continue supporting those charities that were important during our lifetime? And where to give, you can go directly to your favorite charity. You can give through or get a private foundation established. It's a bit costly and it's less flexible. Or you can establish a fund at the foundation. The thing is, if you give directly to a charity, let's say that you have a will and you have these 10 charities you want to give to, or 5 charities, and you die. Before you die, some of your charitable intentions may have changed. Maybe you haven't updated your will and it's 10 years old, and this one charity is no longer of interest to you, and you didn't amend your will, well, it's going to go to that charity anyway, because that's what it states. At the foundation, up until your death, you can change any of those designated organizations at any time, as long as you're alive. So what happens there is that the foundation has a fund for you that becomes permanent upon your death, if you choose that, and it can give to all the charities that you wish to give to. What to give, these are some things that you can look at. The bank accounts, I think the best thing is if, when you're considering this, is not only talking to your state attorney, but talking to your CPA. Because I think in this case, when you said what to give and even how much to give later on, we'll talk about, is you need to think about 3 things that are going to happen with your money when you die. And you have to fill out a form to say, you can fill out a form that says, how much do you want to give to the government? How many wants to give 100% to the government, right? Okay. How much do you want to give to family members? And how much do you want to give to charity? Those are the 3 considerations. And depending upon how you use your assets, it's going to vary drastically. I mean, think about it. When our parents were in their 50s or 60s, so let's go back 30 or 40 years. What was the biggest asset people had? A house. What is it today? IRAs. And what's the most taxed? IRAs, not the houses. So it gets a little more complicated. So those are things that's really helpful to have the right people in place to help with that. We can also work with, complicated businesses and so forth, or closely held businesses. There's just a lot of things you can consider in giving. So as I said, we have roughly 600 donors. Everyone's different, and we have lots of experience with what people have given, so we can help you with that.
Okay, and when and how to give. So some of us are already giving, and we're familiar with either working through a donor advised fund or giving directly to your school or your church or whatever charity that you're passionate about. Donor advised funds is obviously the most common tool that we work with at the Foundation with donors. It's very simple to establish at the Foundation. It's a 2-page document, 3-page document, and can be changed at any time. Donors will make a contribution to the Catholic Foundation to go into their fund, to establish their fund, and that money can be used to be directed by you, the donor, back out to charity. So we like to refer to it as a charitable checkbook. You get a tax deduction when you make your contribution into your donor advised fund, and then you can spend that out over time. There's no rush, which I think a lot of people like that fact. It's very flexible. And if you have a windfall, for example, an inheritance, or you sell a business and you're trying to avoid a capital gain, you can establish a fund at the Catholic Foundation, put your windfall into that fund, and then take your time to decide how you want to direct those charitable fund monies by granting out to nonprofits. And those nonprofits, we work with Catholic organizations, but we also have donors who grant out to non-Catholic organizations, and we'll talk about that a little later. Most or all the organizations that we approve for grants to go out to have to follow the Catholic beliefs, so that is something that I want to make sure that everybody understands that here. IRAs, if you're over 70 and a half, and I think there's a few of you in here, you're definitely familiar with the qualified charitable distribution. So that's something to remember as well as a way to support your favorite charities. And we were talking earlier about planned giving. So that is, making your plans today for later. Gifts through a will or a bequest, that's the most commonly I think most people understand what that is. Establish an endowment fund at the foundation. I spoke with a lady here this morning who has already established an endowment fund at the Catholic Foundation, and all of her estate assets will come into that fund after her lifetime. She has decided that is the legacy that she wants to leave, and then she is going to be able to direct in advance where she wants the funds to be distributed out annually to those nonprofits that are important to her today, so that she will be able to continue to support them after her lifetime. So that's another wonderful and impactful way. Charitable remainder trusts and charitable gift annuities are other tools that you can establish now while you're alive, and those gifts will continue after your lifetime. And then beneficiary designations, and that's a life insurance policy or an IRA. You can give a designation to a charity of your choice. And then a private foundation. A lot of our donors today work with the Community Foundation, the Catholic Foundation, and have a private foundation. And many have to decide how they want their private foundation to be run after their lifetime. And so we have been able to help several families in that situation to convert their private foundation into a donor-advised fund at the Catholic Foundation, where they can continue to give through an endowment fund when they're no longer running their foundation. And then a split interest gift, we talked a little bit about that, a charitable remainder trust and a charitable gift annuity. Once a donor establishes one of those tools, they can get a payment while they're alive. It's an income payment, and then a remainderment will go to the charity of their choice. The Catholic Foundation, we work with individuals on charitable gift annuities, and we have a saying at the Catholic Foundation: if you want to live a long life, you should purchase a charitable gift annuity, because you're guaranteed to live to about 100. It seems that all of our donors who are in that age bracket all have charitable gift annuities, so they're receiving income from us every quarter, which is a nice way to go. This is an example of what a charitable gift annuity payout would look like. Obviously, as you mature in age, your payout is a little larger, your annual payments can be a little larger, and then the interest rate is obviously increased as well, and your tax deduction goes up. But it's definitely something to think about, and is an effective tool if you're looking to give to charity but also receive a stream of income while you're alive.
So we talked about giving now and later in a donor-advised fund. Just to talk a little bit about that again, it is probably the best thing is people give to a donor-advised fund, they put money into it and spend it out. Put money into it, spend out, put money. It's one of those things that you can use for planning if you do have a liquidity event. There's something that happens where you say, listen, I need a tax deduction, so I want to put a lot of money here and get the tax deduction, but I don't know where I want to give it yet to the charities. that's where we can hold it, invest it, and then you can give the money later. It can also be a very good planning tool for your estate planning, because a lot of ours become permanent upon death. So you can have your will, instead of it, as I mentioned earlier about listing all the charities, can say leave it to the Catholic Foundation for the benefit of the Matt and Chris Kramer Fund of the Catholic Foundation. That's what I'd like all of you to do, okay? It's Matt and Chris, K-R-I-S, okay, Kramer, so just get that. No, you put it into your fund at the foundation, and it will become permanent upon your death, and then distributions go out annually to those charities that you wish them to go to. Or you can give it unrestricted, and the Board of Trustees can make a decision on which of the Catholic organizations or those that serve an identifiable Catholic population here in the Dallas Diocese would get on an annual basis. So those are something to consider. And you can also consider including your children as successor advisors. So some people want to teach philanthropy to their kids. And so this is an opportunity to encourage them to be part of this. So when you die, it becomes permanent, and the kids can determine where those monies would go. And then after they die, the Board of Trustees would take over from there. So again, we talked a lot about donor advised fund. Don't want to focus on it. It is simple, it's effective. You do retain the advising control. Okay, it's no longer your asset, but you get that. So I want to give you a couple examples of folks that have used the foundation that we've talked about, because their grants are going out on a regular basis each year, and our Board of Trustees oversee some of them. In this case, Rita Smith, she was involved, in addition to Catholic causes, she did a lot of secular things. So she established a fund with us in 2006, and gift after her lifetime of $1.2 million in 2011. Today, her fund is worth $2.24 million and has granted out over $846,000 in grants. And that will just continue, and it will continue to grow. Louise Buer, Darina mentioned Charitable Remainder Trust. This is a case where Louise Buer, who was a fifth-generation Swiss immigrant, graduate from Ursuline in 1935. She came to the foundation in 1992 with house and stocks and bonds of $777,000, and she created a charitable remainder trust. She received money in return for that, but she received $360,000 during her lifetime from 92 to 2000, and when she passed away in 2000, it became a permanent endowment of the Catholic Foundation. It was $4.5 million at that time. So keep in mind, $777,000, 1992, $360,000 comes out of it to pay her annual payments. This was the go-go 90s, the dot-bomb era and so forth. The investments were huge, $4.5 million in 2000. Since then, it's granted out $4.8 million. She wanted to give to three things. She wanted to give a third to Ursuline, which that's her alma mater, a third to the poor and needy, and a third to the poor schools for tuition assistance for poor Catholic schools. So every year, Ursuline, the poor and the needy, and the Catholic schools get a distribution from this fund that they can count on in their budget to take care of things. So $4.8 million has been granted out since 2001, and it's now worth $13.8 million.
And something I want to mention about Rita Smith and Louise, they were both at Ursuline at the same time. I think Rita Smith was about 3 years younger than Louise Buer, but after I learned their stories, I have daughters who attended Ursuline, one is still there, and I was walking through the hallways looking at the photographs of the graduating class. So I wanted to find Rita and Louise and see what they looked like when they were 18, because here we are talking about them today and they're long gone, but their impact is still going. And I thought they had no idea what their impact would be when they were standing on those benches at Ursuline. And, I think Louise's class was like 15 students and Rita's class was maybe 30 students. And now, obviously, there's over 200 girls graduating every year. But it was so impactful to see their little faces standing on the benches and, they hadn't even started into their careers, but just looking back and seeing what they've been able to achieve and continue to achieve because of the endowment is really impactful. And they were, 2 young graduates from Ursuline. So I tell my kids, anything is possible. You can do it. So just a little overview on the foundation. We have current assets that are valued over $300 million, granted out over $300.6 million over the past 74 years. We celebrate our 74 years, how is that possible? That must be a typo. Because we're celebrating our 70th anniversary next year in 2025, so we're excited about that. The past 10 years alone, though, the grants have been over $219 million, so you can see how people's generosity has increased dramatically over the last 10 years, and they've been using the funds and using the foundation for their giving. It's really impressive. In 2023, last year, we granted out over $21 million. 86% went to Catholic causes, so obviously 14% went to non-Catholic, and 68% remained in our 9-county Catholic community. And $19 million were granted out from restricted funds from the donors at the foundation, and $2 million from our unrestricted philanthropy fund, which Matt was talking about earlier. So how much to give? That is obviously a very personal decision. Every household is different. People sometimes calculate their tithing to their churches or religious place of worship at 10% of their annual giving. There's different ways to calculate it. You can endow, if you're thinking about an endowment like Louise and Rita, the way to calculate what an endowment might look like would be to take your annual giving, and we use $10,000 as an example, and multiply it by 20. And so you would need an endowment fund starting at $200,000 for that type of charitable giving level to continue through after your lifetime. And treat charity as a child. We talk to donors about this quite frequently because it is hard to know if you're comfortable, you've reached your successes financially, and your children are doing well financially too. They don't need much more, and you don't want to influence them financially to where they're not productive. And so everybody's got their different reasons to with their inheritance and so on. But one way an example of a way to think about charity is to include it in your estate plan as another child. So if you have 3 children and you're dividing your estate in 3, maybe you imagine charity or call charity your 4th child and include charity as a quarter of your estate plan. That's just another way to think about it, and probably a pretty simple way to follow through on that. So what are your next steps? Well, obviously, you can pray about it. And like all of our Catholic, when we come to a conundrum, we think about what patron saint do we need to pray to. And the patron saint of charity is actually St. Vincent de Paul. And he celebrates 500 years next year. As we found out, the Society of St. Vincent de Paul is celebrating a milestone next year. So obviously, he's doing really good work still. So you can pray to St. Vincent de Paul. Take an inventory of all your assets while you're still with us. You can't really do it after your lifetime, but try and get an inventory today. And that is not always easy, but it's never too late to start. And then how to plan how you will distribute all of God's gifts, either to your heirs, to charity, or, as Matt said, to the government. So it's your choice. So pray as though everything depended on God, and work as though everything depended on you. So thank you very much. We're thrilled to welcome you again today. So thank you for sharing your Saturday morning and afternoon with us, and we'll open it up to any questions.
If we want to sponsor a Catholic church outside of the United States, would that be possible through the Catholic Foundation?
We've done some limited international granting. It's usually there's a Friends of organization here in the U.S. that's important to go through. The limited one I can tell you about, one is that we're doing some work with, and I think it's some of the parish, I don't recall which parishes, but the diocese had a plan with several parishes for Honduras, for education in Honduras. So we do some of that, but it's very involved from a standpoint of there's a committee here in the United States and there's a committee over there to be able to make sure the monies go for the right things.
But you can't go direct to the parish?
Typically not on an international grant.
But you can grant within the U.S., anywhere within the U.S. I think sometimes people get confused that you have to stay within the Diocese of Dallas with the charity, but that's not the case. But if that church has an affiliation that is a 501c3 here, no, it doesn't. Yeah, I think the best way to do is to give directly to them. Mm-hmm.
Yes.
Yes, on the donor advised fund, I believe you, okay. On the donor advised funds, I think you mentioned that that was a way of avoiding capital gains. Is there not a cap, or what is the percentage of the cap that would escape the capital gains tax?
Well, the limitation that you have on giving, charitable giving, and giving to a donor advised fund is it's 60% in cash and AGI, or your adjusted gross income. It can't be more than 60%.
60% of that.
But on the capital gains, on the stock, it's 30% of your adjusted gross income. So you can't exceed that. But keep in mind, if you gave more than that, you can carry forward 5 years your charitable, that amount for taxes in future years.
Okay.
Up to 5 years.
All right, thank you.